If you ask me, one of the greatest tragedies of modern travel is that nautical voyages have become synonymous with massive cruise ships, the condos of the seas. They can be so much more than that and so much better. Take Turkey, for example, which of course has been renamed to Türkiye, but I'm going to stick to the old name for now. The Turkey of the imagination is the domes and spires of Istanbul, the balloons of Cappadocia, and the warm glasses of tea and hookahs by the entrance to a thousand-year-old bazaar. But Turkey became Turkey by sea, and it's on the water that you can see the way it all came to be, the way it all came together, the parts in between the scented bazaars and the sublime cliffs and plains. Istanbul is one of the most topographically blessed cities on earth, with views in every direction from every street corner. You see the layers of history everywhere, evidence of the centuries that this city was one of the centers of global civilization, longer than any city anywhere, whether in Egypt or China and certainly in Europe. Athens had maybe 250 years, Rome 500 if we're being generous. But Istanbul, formerly Byzantium, formerly Constantinople, was at the center for more than 1,500 years, 3 times as long as Rome. And that's only the beginning of what Turkey has to offer. On this trip that we've put together, we'll be taking you from the center of the world to the quietest corners of the Mediterranean, getting insight into the Turkey that ruled the world and the parts that continue to charm it to this day. Our journey commences in the timeless city of Istanbul, overlooking the tranquil Sea of Marmara. We then journey south and overland, tracing the Aegean's azure edge past the olive-rich hills of Ayvalık to the historic plains of Ephesus. In Bodrum, we trade the road for the sea, boarding our private gulet to navigate the most intricate stretches of the Turkish Riviera. We'll round the rugged Knidos headland where the seas meet, weaving through the sheltered turquoise reaches of Bençik Bay and the Gulf of Kereme. Our voyage continues past the remote southern cliffs of Lorima and the river-fed coast of Ekincik, finding final harbor in the spectacular island-studded waters of Göcek and Fethiye. Finally, for those seeking a dramatic contrast, an optional flight reveals the high, wind-swept volcanic plateaus of Cappadocia. At Wheel and Anchor, we believe that the most extraordinary journeys often unfold on the water. Our Nauticals are carefully put together experiences designed for those who want to explore the world's most enchanting waterways, oceans and seas, as well as lakes and rivers, in an intimate and immersive way. These trips offer a blend of aquatic adventure and cultural discovery, allowing you to experience destinations from a unique perspective. So to be clear, this is not a cruise. This is a nautical voyage of the sort we humans have been taking for thousands of years. Small groups of people on a small boat, hopping from place to place as we do our business, which in our case is having an amazing time. We'll anchor in secluded bays and small harbors that bigger ships, even the so-called small ships, simply can't reach. Because we can get so close to shore, transfers will be easy and quick, and we'll be able to spend as much time on land as we do on the unhurried waters. Istanbul is a city of markets and mosques, and we'll show you the best of both, while doing our best to stay away from the crowds as much as possible. We'll have time to see the Blue Mosque and the Hagia Sophia, of course, but it's the Rustem Pasha with the intricate floral patterning of its Iznik tiles that will be our highlight. This is the one that most people miss because there are only so many hours in a day, and there are about 3,000 mosques in this city. And we picked this one because it's the best of the under-visited ones, the design and architecture being second to none. It also happens to be close to the Egyptian Bazaar, also known as the Spice Bazaar, where we'll be able to see the mounds of paprika and cinnamon, cumin, and peppers. Vendors will try to lure us in with free samples of Turkish delight, known locally as lokum or cerzeye, a carrot-based candy mixed with nuts and carved from logs. Feel free to be lured. These things are delicious, and the vendors are charming. We'll also take a cooking class, learning to cook a 5-course Turkish meal. This is the kind of practical thing you can take home with you to amaze and impress friends and family, as well as share a bit of your own expanded palate. And it's also just fun. The class will be just us, a private tutorial on one of the world's great cuisines. Once we've had our fill of the big city, we'll head south, through the olive groves of Ayvalık, stopping at the Madra Vineyards, a family estate named for the mountain range it's perched in, growing wines on some of the oldest wine-growing granite soil there is. People have been making wine here for longer than practically anywhere else, including Greece and Rome. And then there's Ephesus. And no matter how many times you hear about this ancient capital, the best preserved of the ruined cities of Asia Minor, you will not be prepared for the scale of grandeur of this place. The whole place is highlights, but to give you a little context, it has a 24,000-seat theater. Canada's biggest, Toronto's Meridian, formerly Hummingbird, and O'Keefe Centres have just over 3,000 seats. From Ephesus, we'll make our way to Bodrum, home of the gulet, and more specifically, home of our gulet, the Never Queen. Gulets are broad-based wooden boats, traditionally made of teak or pine, workships meant for fishing, sponge diving, and generally hopping from harbor to harbor rather than crossing great, tumultuous seas. Their size, stability, and look made their late 20th century transition into tourist boats practically inevitable. The Never Queen is 40 meters long with 10 cabins, and it's all ours, so there'll be no fighting for deck chairs or waiting in line at some buffet. Every cabin has its own bathroom and other amenities, and of course it's fully air-conditioned. We're certainly not going to be roughing it here, folks. Our first morning on our nautical home for the week will introduce us to the full-on Turkish ritual that is breakfast. The average Turk can fully indulge maybe once or twice a week, but we'll be experiencing the full kahvaltı every morning. Cheeses and fruits, spreads and eggs, meats and more spreads than you can shake a cucumber at. Depending on how long we linger in bed, we can take a little jump off the aft deck for a morning swim before breakfast, or just lounge around in the dappled sunlight with a good book in our laps. Maybe we'll take on reading a work of Homer, who was from around these parts. We'll sail to places like Benchik Bay, where pine forests stretch down to meet the sea, and generally experience the Aegean coast as you can only see it from a boat just like ours. The civilizations that formed Turkey were maritime ones, and so a lot of the most fundamental history is to be found on the coasts, like in Knidos, where an ancient theater overlooks both the Aegean and the Mediterranean, or the Lycian rock tombs of Dalyan, which we'll see by taking a riverboat into the delta, a resting place for soldiers, sailors, and the families who lost them. These are practical tombs, outposts of the fortress and naval stronghold the place once was, 2,500 years ago. After a week of sailing, we'll call into Göcek, the end of the main part of our trip, but for those who want more, we're offering an extension that will serve as the dramatic finale to this extraordinary adventure. From the Aegean, we'll fly inland to Cappadocia and Göreme, land of the fairy chimneys, often described as a moonscape. The chimneys are actually millions of years old, formed from volcanic ash that hardened in spots, staying when the softer soils that surrounded them eroded away. What makes them extra special here is that the people started using them as homes and storage rooms, even churches, carving them to meet their needs. It's a spectacular landscape, which has formed into all sorts of fanciful shapes. The optional but unforgettable balloon ride is the perfect and classic way to see it all at once. Cameras are a necessity, of course, but the real experiential beauty of the place needs to be seen to be fully appreciated. But the one thing you can't see from those balloons is the underground cities. So we'll descend into them, seeing the vibrantly colored frescoes preserved for 1,000 years in their eternal shadow. We'll also see a Sema ceremony at the Saruhan Caravanserai, performed by the Senazans, otherwise known as dervishes, spinning in their white robes. They invite us to watch, but to be clear, this is not a performance. It's a ritual that we're being given a glimpse of. They'll be doing it whether we're there or not. From the bazaars and holy places of Istanbul to the silent bays of the Mediterranean and the valleys of Cappadocia, this trip offers a thoughtfully planned, reliable travel experience shared with a community of friends. From markets to mosques, seaside to cliffs, not to mention subterranean oases of 1,000-year-old rituals and beliefs that are still being played out today. You'll never think of Turkey or travel the same way again. In other words, this is travel the wheel and anchor way. I really hope you'll be able to join us on this trip.